Hi, this video is to show the integration that I just finished, or kind of got a first version out with between Node-RED and coreBOS. Node-RED, um, I found Node-RED about 5 or 6 days ago, maybe a week. It really surprised me. I was very happily surprised to see the power, the simplicity, and the functionality of this program. It's basically an ETL program, very similar to the PDI kettle kind of thing and all those tools, but or even Zapier and N8N and Make Integromat and all that stuff. That kind of tool, but oriented, very oriented towards devices, Internet of Things. It has a lot of integrations with that kind of device and streaming and the like. What I liked was the simplicity. Really, it's just kind of very intuitive, gives you all of the information right on the editor with the debugging and the stepping and flows and everything that you kind of would expect from a tool like this, but really easy. Most of these tools are always overly complex and hard to manage and hard to learn, and Node-RED is really simple. It just kind of does what it's supposed to do. Even the nodes are really intelligent. They just kind of take messages apart and do what you would expect them to do, and then they put them back together in the messages, and it kind of just really makes it easy. I was looking for this kind of tool for a project that I had on my list, and this one, even the integrations that it has already supported what I needed, and it was really incredible. I did what I usually do, and I kind of translated the application because that gives me a lot of knowledge about what the application can do. And then I created an integration with coreBOS just to get an idea of how the programming would be. Is it easy or hard to make a node and to get it integrated with some application? It actually is very easy. The event-based programming that they have with the API that is already available, the documentation is pretty good, not really good. You have almost everything you need. The video tutorials are also very nice, and I didn't have any issues creating the integration. Basically, took me a day of work, reading everything and trying and testing and playing around with it. Anyway, this video I'm going to take basically a two-part approach. This first one is kind of just, okay, what is Node-RED and what is the integration with coreBOS looking like? And then I'm going to do another second part where I actually do an integration, an implementation of a use case. The Node-RED application is here, nodered.org. You have a lot of documentation. The video tutorials are really nice, very good. They have a whole bunch of information there. And this is what Node-RED looks like. As you can see here on the left, I have a set of nodes or little boxes that do things. You can add your own there, which is what I did actually with the integration with coreBOS. They have a whole bunch of their Node-RED library. I mean, there's thousands of integrations here. You can search for them, and they have all sorts of things. It's really interesting. They're really easy to install. Also, one of the first tests I did was this flow that you see here, where I created a Kafka consumer. I have a Kafka queue here installed on my computer. So I'm actually, actually on another server here in my office, and it connects there, and it's consuming messages that I send there. When I receive the message there, I set a new property topic on the message that's flowing through the nodes. I set that to the key of the message that I got from the Kafka queue, and I set it into the topic because the send email node, which is here, this one over here at the right, actually expects the subject to be in the topic. So here I'm actually setting the subject of the email that I want to send to the key that I got from the Kafka message consumer. And then I set up the template of the body, where I just basically read the key again and the value to get the Kafka message that's there, and I send the email with my data here on my server. So basically, I set up with 4 nodes, and actually in a handful of clicks, I set up a Kafka consumer that sends an email when it receives a message, and that works incredibly well. It was simple and it just did what I would expect. So once I was kind of convinced that this tool was worth dedicating more time to, I set up to do the coreBOS integration. And as you can see here, we have we have a whole bunch of nodes, and each one does a whole bunch of things. We have one eventually here, which is the coreBOS functions nodes. I set up these nodes. We could do more easily. These were kind of, once I had the first ones out, the rest were kind of easy. You can see here I have a login and a logout. I have a query. I have describe and list types, which give me the meta information of the modules and fields that we have. And then I have the typical CRUD ones, where I have the create, retrieve, update, delete functions. And then I did the invoke because that one is really the generic kind of thing. So let's have a look at what these, how these look in the flows. So here I have another flow. You can see that the flows are divided into tabs up here, so you can have different sections, kind of divide them into logical blocks together. Each flow has its own context, so and we have also global context, which you can share between most of these, all of these tabs. Anyway, this coreBOS query works. Here we have a login node. This login node can be triggered by clicking on this button or by receiving a message. So if you, I mean, this is a ad hoc kind of test that I'm just doing here to show off the integration itself. So I'm going to trigger them manually. But if you need to trigger them on a cron-based or event-based thing, there's a node here that's called inject up here in the common, which has a whole bunch of different ways of triggering and starting a flow. So this coreBOS login is this coreBOS login here. If we double click on it, we can see that it has a name, which is that CBNG that I have here, and it has a credentials node. The credentials node is a generic configuration node, which is also in the global context, so it can be shared among all of the tabs and flows that we have up here. If you click on that to edit, you can see here that I'm connecting to my local host, my local server, to this coreBOS ng install, which is this tab over here, where I have here just a normal evolutivo install, actually not a coreBOS, but anyway, it's the same principle. And here we have the user and the access key, just like always. So once I have the credentials configured, this node is going to do the login on the web service, and it's going to pass down the message here. And that message is going to contain two parts. Actually, we could even check that message. I'll do that now in the debug node so we can actually see that. Let's move this down here and connect this over here. That will mean that when I get when this is done, the message is going to come to the debug node and it's going to appear here on the right. Then that message is also going to flow down to the node, to the coreBOS query node, and it's going to end up sending to the debug message also the result of the query. Let's see this one first, okay, and let's see how this works. This again, this is going to connect to that coreBOS install, and it's going to put on the payload two messages or two properties. One property is going to be called coreBOS, and that's going to be the default connection for all of the nodes that continue after that login. And then it's going to create a duplicate message, a copy of that property into the CBNG property. This is done and important if we have more than one install connection. In that case, the default coreBOS property is not enough because we need to be able to distinguish each node what coreBOS install it's going to work on. Okay, it's a little bit, it's not that hard to understand once you have the use case, but we'll see that going forward. Anyway, right now, this is going to create that message for us, and it's going to send it to the coreBOS query. coreBOS query has the connection name, which I have hard-coded to CBNG, which is this name here. Like as I said before, it will be clearer as you go through the video. It's actually not needed in this case at all because If it's not defined, it's going to use the coreBOS default property, which this node, this login, is going to set also. So we could avoid it completely. And then we have the query that we actually want to launch. In this case, I'm doing an account name from accounts where account name starts with CHE. Okay, so if I trigger this, I have to deploy because I made that extra change here. Every time you make a change, you have to deploy it to the backend, which is where the actual work gets done. Okay, so I'm going to click here on this button here, and that will trigger this flow. Okay, so as you see here, this one logged in. It said it was ready. It sent the message down to the query. The query was done, and it sent the message to the debug, which outputted the messages here. Okay, so first we have our first message should have arrived, which go down this path, which was coming from the CBNG, and that should be this message up here. As you can see, it has no results. It just has a payload, and the payload contains two properties, a coreBOS property and a CBNG property. They're both identical. They both have the session name, the user ID that I logged in with, and I. So as I was saying before, if this coreBOS query node has a connection name, which it does in this case, CBNG, it's going to use the connection properties in this section here, in this property. If I did not have any value here, I leave this empty, then it's going to look for the coreBOS default property. In this case, they are identical because we just have one login. But if we had more, I'm going to cancel that one, make sure it's still there, okay? If we had more than one login, we're connecting to more than one coreBOS install, then we actually need to distinguish for each node. We have to tell it what coreBOS install it's going to be working with. In this case, we only have one, so it doesn't matter, okay? But in general, it could be very useful, and as we will see in the future, in the future next video, you will understand how that is very, very important. Okay, that's that first message that came down this path, but that message was also sent to the coreBOS query. The coreBOS query then sent all of those results to the debug message. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 results. If I open this message here, now I have that payload, the same as we had out of the login, but now we have another property, which is the total number of rows, which is 5, which is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 messages I have here. And each message has also the record with the result of the query. As you can see here, I have the account name and the ID. If we open another message, it will have identical structure, coreBOS, CBNG, and the 5, and the record will be the next one, which is the node. So I have here, for each result of the query, I'm going to get a message that will have the record or the row that has been retrieved from the query. So it's actually that kind of easy to get this working. Let's get rid of this one. Let's set this back to the way it was. Let's clear this, and I'm gonna change this to, I don't know, get something else like the email maybe, just to see that that's working. And we could start with, I don't know, with a C, just to see if something works, if something changes there. Let's click there, and I got an access denied email, because email doesn't exist. So that means that it's email 1, and we deploy, and we trigger, and there we go. We have 3 records that start with AC, and here we have them. So as you can see, it's kind of easy to retrieve information, and it's kind of just what you would expect from this. It's really nice, easy, intuitive, simple. As I was saying before, it's surprising how the debug kind of just works and lets you play with all of this information. So anyway, so now that we have the basics out of the way, let's kind of rapidly go through the other ones. The next nodes we have here are the describe and list types. Those are metadata information. I have a tab here with this already set up. As you can see here, I have a coreBOS login. I'm sharing the CB credentials. I'm connected to the same coreBOS NG install that I have here. I have a list types. List types, I have no connection. Again, this is exactly all of the nodes have this connection property. If it's empty, we'll use the default coreBOS, which is exactly what we need to do here. List types has no other properties. It will show you a list of all of the modules that the current user has access to. So there's no other properties. It just does what it has to do. And as you can see here, I'm admin, so I get all of the modules. And I get a message for each one. So here I have the workflow and the audit trail, the login history, and the business actions and inventory, all of the modules that I have access to. As you can see here, the message returns on the module itself. And in the payload, we have nothing. It's done. Because if you want to loop over them and you need to know how many, when does it end, how many do I have, how many modules are actually there. So that means that the last message of all is a generic message that just says, okay, yeah, you're finished, done, true. As you can see here, I only have one property. All of these in the payload, I only have, I don't even have one. In this one, I just have the coreBOS object because the coreBOS has no name. If it has no name, then we suppose that you're not interested in doing that name thing. If we do the describe, it's very similar. We'll just get, okay, in this case it does have a parameter because you have to tell me which module or modules you want to get the description from. In this case I have accounts and contacts, so again I have this accounts. It sends me back the accounts, the module, and the metadata. The label, the name, if it's updatable, all of the fields with all the field information for each field, account name, and basically what we get from a describe on the web service app, which is documented in the wiki, so you can read it from there. And then we get a last message kind of telling us that we're done, which I could actually eliminate now because we need to that keep on going down. Yeah, in case we need more information. Okay, so basically that's the metadata information. The CRUD, the create, retrieve, update, and delete, as you can see here, these are a little different because the way I did this was that here in the retrieve, I'm just defining the condition, the connection. I could have put here the ID of the record that you want to retrieve, but that's really limited and kind of useless. I mean, if you can imagine a use case where you're setting up a flow like this, you're probably going to get information from a query or from another system or from a user input, from an HTTP request. I mean, Node Red makes it really easy to set up a listener, a web service kind of thing, where you have a node here which is HTTP on the network. You can listen on any port and it just sits there and listens for messages, so you could actually send in an ID and get some and trigger some action or something. Anyway, the thing is that you're going to get that ID from a message in the flow. Doesn't really make sense to hard code an ID. So basically what I did was create expect. This retrieve expects to get the record ID on a record ID property of the message. So here on the inject, I added an inject node. This is the inject node. And this inject node, I'm setting in the message a property, which is record ID, to the record ID that I want to read from. So this retrieve doesn't have any parameters because it's going to read them from the message that's flowing through the flow. So basically this inject sets that record ID. It sets another property here, but that's irrelevant, doesn't matter. That message, I will click on this button, it will actually create the message, add the property, and send the flow, that message down the path. It will get to the coreBOS login. The coreBOS login is a normal coreBOS login, just like the other ones that we've seen before. In this case, I'm not going to trigger it from manually here. I'm going to trigger the inject manually, and that's going to send it to the coreBOS login. The login is going to send it to the retrieve. The retrieve is going to get that record ID, and I'll put that record information on the message. So as you can see, effectively, that worked correctly. I got the payload, which is the timestamp, which was coming from before, the coreBOS login, just like the previous examples that we were seeing. I have the record ID that's coming also from that inject, and then the record that was actually retrieved from the coreBOS system with all of the fields means that we can do whatever we need to do. Okay, that's the retrieve, delete. Basically, it's exactly the same functionality. All that we need to do here is the connection because all the rest is coming from the inject message. In this case, I'm deleting record 1931,931,1931 from this install. Let's open that one here. Contacts. And contacts 1931 is this record. As you can see, I can access that one. If I trigger this, I get a message telling me that this record ID was deleted. That's all that I get. As you can see, the rest of the message is respected. And now if I come here and try to reload this, I effectively get that it has been deleted. If we go to the recycle bin and we try to restore that contact, which is now here, this one, restore, yes, and we go back to contacts and 1931, I have that record here recovered again. So deleting is basically very similar to retrieving. You just set up the record ID and it will read that record ID and delete it. Now I have an update here. An update here is I need a little bit more. I need to know the module and the information I want to update. In this case, I'm going to update that same 1931 record. I'm going to change the mobile to this number here. So let's actually come here, edit this record, and let's change this mobile phone to, I don't know, whatever. Okay, so now it's set to 222. So here I'm setting that, I'm telling Node-RED that I want to update this module with this JSON object here. These three buttons here make it really nice to be able to edit the JSON. You can even have a visual editor here. So it's kind of easy to define this. It's not, I mean, it's manual, but it's not that hard. And obviously, in a real use case, you'd probably be getting this update information from the flow, from the previous messages and the process, whatever you're launching. If you're getting a message from TikTok or Facebook or some, I don't know, whatever's. I mean, I could imagine. I mean, this is an update, but I mean, a create example would be where you have some Internet of Things device emitting some warnings, and you want to have those warnings being processed on a ticketing system. So every time you get a warning from the from the device, you would create a ticket in your coreBOS install to be able to process and follow through the warning, and document that warning, for example. So in this case here, I'm doing this update. So if we trigger this, it goes through the flow. It tells me that the record was updated, and it sends back the whole record. As you can see, the mobile phone has been updated, and if we reload this page, effectively that 222 has been changed. So I mean, it's just, that's again basically what you would expect from an update. And the create is exactly the same. In this case, yeah, there's no connection information. There's no parameters there because the parameters are coming in again through the module and the record. In this case, I'm creating a Node-RED, which I probably already have because I probably did some testing before. So if we come here to the end, I already have that Node-RED record, but if we change the first name to Node2 and last name to Red2, actually let's do that here, Node-RED2, and if we set this to 333 and done, that means that now I should be able to, okay, now I need to deploy again because I changed that message. And if I trigger this, it goes through, and I got an error because the assigned user ID does not have a value. Okay, that means that I need to put here the assigned user ID. Assigned user ID is 91. Okay, done and deploy and trigger, empty that and trigger that again. Assigned user ID does not have a value. What did I do wrong there? Signed. Signed user ID. Done. Done. Deploy. Empty. And trigger. Wonder why that didn't fail the first time I tested. Anyway, as you can see, now I do have that. No, anyway, also a nice example to see how the messaging, the debug messages kind of work, and it's really simple to understand what's going on. I mean, it's one of the things that really surprised me about Node-RED, how intuitive and kind of easy it is to work with. Okay, so in theory, if we come back here to the context module and reload this, now I have that node 2 with the 333. I mean, just kind of that easy to work with. The last one that we're going to see is the invoke. As you can see here, basically we went through all of the nodes that I have created here. The invoke message, the invoke node, sorry, is similar to the other ones. It has basically no properties, just a connection in case you need to tell me where coreBOS install we need to connect to. I created two examples here, one with parameters, and one without parameters. And again, it's basically creating the message. In this case, the invoke node expects to get the method property to understand what method it needs to actually launch. In this case, I'm launching the get portal user info, which has no parameters, so it expects nothing else. And on the method with parameters, I expect to get on the message the method that needs to be executed, and the parameters as a JSON object. In this case, I'm getting the list of related modules from the context module. So let's trigger the first one. The first one was portal user info. So basically what I get back is a response property with the response that's coming from the coreBOS install. All of the information of that user that I'm connected as. And the other one is going to give me, it's going to send in the parameters, and it's going to send, as you can see, I have the parameters here, and I'm going to get the response back with the list of related lists of the contact module, which is what I was asking for. For each one, I get the related tab ID, the tab, the filter fields, and all of the information that I mean, it's just a web service call that you can find in the documented in the wiki, and you can do any call at all. Okay, so basically that is a presentation of Node-RED on one side, very basic, and the coreBOS install integration that I have done. I already commented some of the use cases, which were that, that idea that I have a Node-RED listening on an Internet of Things device, and that's emitting warnings, and I create tickets automatically so that they can be processed and managed. You could get events from anywhere, really. I mean, if you could set up a Facebook form and get that coming in through an HTTP request, then you could create potential. You could create something from a forum on your website, also send it here and get that processed into a potential or into an opportunity or whatever. Actually, the options are almost limitless. It's just I mean, it's just like a Zapier or Integrat make node N8N kind of thing, where you can just kind of get information from anywhere or send it anywhere. Also, you could read records from a coreBOS daily and send them to some other system. Whatever, it's kind of really opening up a lot of integrations easily. Okay, so that's this presentation. I'm going to do another video separately, which is actually going to be a work session where I'm going to try to solve a real use case. For those that you are interested, you can see me on the next video. Basically, the idea is that I had a question this week or last week about how I could send records from one coreBOS install to another. At that question, I answered with a script. Basically, create a PHP script that uses the web service library to launch the query against the source coreBOS, and then loops through the results and sends them to the destination coreBOS install. Now that I have not only learned about Node-RED, but actually also seen the power and created the integration, I understand that probably I should have answered that question saying create a Node-RED flow and read the records from the origin system and send them to the destination system. So I'm going to actually try to do that in the next video. So if you want to see that work session and how that would be done in Node-RED, I'll see you there. And if not, thanks for watching. Bye.